On this episode of On Tap, we visit Urban Growler and hear how a story of perseverance made this brewery a reality.
And we'll hear the story behind the Alaskan Brewing Company and learn about their beers.
Finally, we'll see how the St. Paul Saints are embracing craft beer at their new home. We are here for another episode of On Tap, and we are here at the roadside in Blaine. This time we are outside on their patio. We got the bocce ball court in the background. Nice breeze, a beautiful Blaine day here in late July, early August.
When it's summer, you gotta be outside.
Oh, it's just so gorgeous. I'm Ben Hale, joined by Danica Peterson. Danica, what are you drinking today?
Well, today I have an Oscar Blues Governor right here. It's an Imperial IPA out of Colorado.
And I also went for an Imperial IPA, but I went to California and got the Stone Ruination 2.0, and it's good.
Solid choice.
Yes. I'm just gonna get a sip of it right now.
Yeah, let's drink some beer.
There, that hits the spot. Oh, what delicious beer. You know what, we've got some more delicious beer to talk about. As we do on every episode of On Tap, we head out to a local brewery. We're going to a brewery that actually just celebrated their first anniversary of being in business, being open. They're in St. Paul. It's called Urban Growler, and they're a unique brewery in the fact that they're actually run by two women, which is something you don't often see in the brewing industry. So here are Jill and Deb from Urban Growler to tell you their story. Deb Locke and Jill Pavlak spent years working in high-pressure jobs in corporate America. They knew they wanted a change, but it took years of discussions and research to determine what path would be the right one to take.
Deb and I knew we wanted to go into business together, and we had talked about all kinds of ideas, coffee shop, B&B, but Deb's a very practical person, and she's like, we can't make a living doing that, and we don't want to live at our business like a B&B. So she's been a home brewer since the 90s, and I've owned a couple small businesses, so I knew it's sort of a thrill to have your own business. So we eventually decided on a brewery because of her home brewing experience, and I wanted a restaurant. So that's why we have a tap room with a kitchen.
That decision was made 7 years ago. It meant moving to California so Deb could pursue a master's degree in brewing. When they returned to Minnesota, they began to look at spaces that could house their future brewery. This initially led them to Northeast Minneapolis, where they thought they had a deal before it fell apart. Ultimately, they found their way into a building that they had dreamed about years before.
We had biked by this building a couple years prior and thought, boy, this would make a gorgeous brewery. And our realtor, when we had ended up walking away from that Northeast deal, our realtor said, don't worry, you will find a space and you'll know when it's the space. Well, he sent us this listing. It was like the 20th listing of that day, and I'm like, there's that building, that's it. And when we walked in and we saw the beautiful brick and the high ceilings, beautiful when we walked through the doors. It was an empty brick shell with these beautiful black Carnegie steel beams. A lot of people that are into welding love that lattice look. I guess there's a lot of history behind those beams. And if you ever go to Duluth, it's the same as the lift bridge, the same look as the lift bridge.
They had the building, but that was just the first step in opening a brewery. Next, they needed to sell their vision.
We set up architectural drawings, and we had t-shirts for sale, and basically every weekend that we could, we were in here giving tours, selling t-shirts to pay the rent, and telling our story over and over again until we raised $500,000. So it took us a year to raise $500,000.
The final piece of the funding puzzle was getting approval for a bank loan. Both Jill and Deb felt this was the only time that their gender was a hindrance as they tried to break into a male-dominated field.
From the brewing community, I didn't really feel any obstacles. I am an engineer by training, which is a male-dominated industry as well. So I didn't really feel any hurdles there.
Banks are another story. We did have some issues with banks in the Twin Cities here, finding a loan.
So despite our stellar credit, nationally award-winning business plan, having owned successful businesses or run multinational projects, we couldn't get a loan from a bank.
We ended up having to get our loan from a small town, our Mankato Pioneer Bank. They're used to high risk, they're used to farmer type loans, and I guess our big equipment is kind of like dairy equipment.
That was the only time that we really felt like if our names were Larry and Mo on the business plan rather than Jill and Deb, that would have been a lot easier.
But that was discouraging, but it all worked out.
Urban Growler officially opened in August of 2014, and it has gone better than they could have ever imagined.
Where we thought we'd be at a year, we hit at 5 months. So we've expanded our kitchen already. We're almost done with that. We're practicing menu items. So we didn't expect to be doing that for a couple years in, but we're not even a year old and that's already happened. So what makes sense for us now would be to add more fermenters and expand capacity so we can bottle and can and do more distribution. And we currently have like 40 accounts outside of the brewery here at restaurants and bars. But we want to be very thoughtful about this. We don't want to, just because we can expand. We want to take our time and really think this through.
Any brewery can have a great story, but a microbrewery will only be successful if it delivers good beer. And Urban Growler thinks that they have something for everyone.
I love Deb's beer because it's very drinkable and approachable. It's not over the top. So I think what we have is a nice spectrum of flavors, and people who are not craft beer drinkers will find something they like. Wine drinkers will find something they like, and people that are really into hoppy, bitter beer, she's got a great Big Boot Rye IPA or our Midwest IPA. That was a Blue Ribbon winner at the State Fair in 2012. So she knows what she's doing, and it's just, I like that it's very drinkable.
What do you start them off with?
Well, whatever flavors they like. So it's not just, someone likes coffee, for example, we'll give them the lovely porter. If somebody they're not a beer drinker, they like wine, we'll give them something to try that's a little more acidic, or a Berliner Weiss that's a little sour. Sometimes the acidity appeals to wine drinkers. The Bud Light crowd, and people that come here are very open to trying new things. We'll start them out with something that's light in color. Still has a lot of flavor, but light in color. Sometimes it's hard for folks to get over the color thing.
Deb was eager to share with us some of her flagship beers.
Cowbell Cream Ale is our most popular beer. It's our cream ale, it's the one right here.
Yeah, we've got it right here.
It's lighter in color. It still has a lot of flavor. It's by far our #1 seller. And we sell a lot of that in bars and restaurants too. It's very drinkable.
Yeah, tell me a little bit more about it.
Yeah.
Where's it kind of what am I going to taste?
Well, it'll be light and refreshing. You may taste a little bit of corn. You will not taste cream. The cream ale is a style of beer. It doesn't mean there's milk in it. It doesn't mean there's cream in it. It's basically a lighter colored beer with a nice head, very, very drinkable, moderate alcohol range, lower bitterness, but still has some malty corn type flavors.
And this is something that, you could drink all year round, but it's super refreshing, great for this time of year too,
Yeah,
it seems like.
You can drink it all year round, and even in the winter, it's our biggest seller. So.
And then we've got more here. Let's go down the line here. We got our next one here.
That's our City Day Ale.
Okay.
So our City Day Ale is a Kentucky common style beer. So that's a style that was popular pre-Prohibition days down in the Louisville area. So it uses a lot of the ingredients that were used down there and a lot of the ingredients that were used in bourbon. So it has some rye, it has corn, it has a sour mash and some other interesting things.
It's got just kind of a, I don't know, I can't even really place it, but it has just this a little bit different flavor profile that's just, I think it's really good.
Yeah, well, it's moderate bitterness, and it's a style that's making a comeback. So it just showed up on the BJCP style guidelines recently as a style.
It seems like something that could appeal to the hopheads and also appeal to the cream ale drinkers or the people that want something a little
so
it's kind of in between.
Yeah, it is an in-between beer. We don't have a pale ale on tap right now, so a lot of folks that are used to drinking pale ale, this would be a good choice for them. It has a lot of different flavors and depth to it.
Yeah, and then you got the rhubarb one here that you were just talking about with the Plow to Pint series.
Yeah.
I mean, this is really, kind of that, that farm to table thing in the restaurant industry. This is it in beer form.
It is it in beer form. So we used about 200 pounds of rhubarb in that beer for a 10-barrel batch. It'll be tart, slow in bitterness. It's very acidic, but very refreshing. It's about 5% alcohol.
I could see this being something that wine drinker might like. Like
Yes.
it kind of, that it's got that kind of more fruity type flavor.
Yeah, but it's not sweet. It's
Right.
more dry. It
Yeah.
uses a Belgian yeast, and often people who don't like beer like the Belgian yeast style.
Right. Yeah.
So one of the things we try to do here in the tap room is offer a variety of styles so that we can find at least one that someone will like. Even the non-beer drinkers or the wine drinkers.
And the best way to do that is, best way to find what you like is just come in and get a flight, right?
Yep, you can get a flight here. We normally do 6 on a flight, but you could ostensibly get every one that we have on tap. And we usually have between 9 and 11 on tap in
That sounds about what I would do.
the tap room. Yeah.
All right, last one we got here.
That's our Big
the
Boot,
Big Boot?
Rye IPA. It's got a lot of rye in it, and rye is a little different than barley in that it's a little, what I say is a little more spicy. So it definitely has a unique flavor. And it's a kind of an English style ale, so it'll be middle of the road hops. It's not over the top hops. It's very full bodied. It's got a lot of things going on in there.
All right, so of all the different maybe styles or beers that do you have a favorite?
You know what I drink most of is the Cowbell Cream Ale. I find myself in many occasions where I have to be carrying a beer and I need to keep my wits about me. So Cowbell has plenty of flavor and it's delicious, yet you can have more than 1, 2. It's very drinkable.
Yeah.
Well, I can't have 7. Maybe you can have 7, but
For Deb, she started brewing because it was fun and social. For Jill, that theme carries over into the atmosphere they hope is created at Urban Growler.
We really want to make sure people know that it's family friendly. That's one of the most common questions I get asked is, can I bring my toddler or my teenager? And absolutely. We have giant Jenga outside. It's really fun to see families playing games outside together. We have soda for kids, or we try to keep that in mind. We have some decks of cards for families to play. So, but someone asked me to describe our market, and I couldn't. It's from 21 to 86. We've had the full range here. But what we really want is for people to feel warm and welcome no matter where they're coming from, no matter what they believe, what they think. Doesn't matter. That's kind of why we started this place to begin with. It was during a very divisive political time, and Deb and I felt really discouraged and frustrated and just thought, if people would just sit down and have a beer with us, they would not be afraid and they wouldn't care about what we thought or believed or did. So we want to make sure that people know anyone is welcome here.
Did you know kids who play outdoors have healthier lungs?
Totally.
Did you know that boys that play with dolls make better husbands?
My son has lots of dolls. But did you know terry cloth diapers breathe better?
I did.
It's totally true.
Oh, yeah.
Did you guys know statistically friendly kids have more friends?
Yeah.
That's obvious.
Did you know most people think they're using the right car seat for their kid, but they're not?
Parents who really know it all know for sure that their child is in the right seat. Visit safercar.gov/the right seat to make sure your child is protected.
Turn here. There. Excuse me.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
Well, welcome back to On Tap. As we have in the last couple episodes, we once again visited Northgate Wine and Spirits for one of their beer seminars. And this month they brought to town one of the breweries that's the furthest away from Minneapolis in America as you can get. Alaskan Brewery out of Juneau came to town.
Awesome. Did they bring any exotic Alaskan animals?
No
or glaciers?
No animals or glaciers, but they did bring some fun and tasty treats,
Well, that's just as good.
including a 2011 smoked porter, which was fun to drink. And while they were here, they shared their story of how they brew on America's last frontier.
The 20th largest craft brewery in the nation began nearly 30 years ago.
Alaskan Brewing Company was founded in 1986 by a husband and wife by the name of Jeff and Marcy Larson. Two 28-year-olds at the time that literally had no experience whatsoever in running a brewery.
They were the first brewery to open in Juneau since Prohibition, and only the 67th to open across the nation in that time frame. They began locally, and then as they grew, and the popularity of craft beer grew, they began expanding across the country, finally reaching Minnesota 4 years ago.
We opened up Minnesota in May of 2011. That was our 11th market we opened. Prior to that, it was 4 years earlier when we opened up Colorado.
And even though Minneapolis is about 2,500 miles from Juneau, thanks to Alaska's tourism industry, their beer was already popular with people living thousands of miles away.
We get 1 million people a year through the port at Juneau and the cruise lines. Right around 20 to 25% actually comes from this 5-state region. So a lot of people from this part of the country were already familiar with our beer being on those cruises going up to Alaska.
A few of the people in Sean's seminar at Northgate Wine and Spirits said they had visited the brewery in Juneau and been fans of their beers since then. While being in Juneau has its tourism perks, it can also cause some difficulties. But even so, Alaska is at the heart of who they are.
If we didn't brew it in Juneau, we're no longer the Alaskan Brewing Company.
One of those difficulties is shipping. There are no roads in or out of Juneau, so everyone and every shipment in or out of the city has to go by plane or by boat. And regardless of where they are shipping to, nothing is close.
It is definitely tricky to get beer out here, especially come winter time. So there's no roads in or out of Juneau. It's 3 sides open water, back side's a glacier ice field. So we barge it 1,000 miles down to Seattle, roughly 2,000 by truck to get to Minnesota. We're traveling as far as a lot of the European beers do to get here. But I will tell you, come winter time, if we're thinking it's going to be 15 days, there's a lot of times trucks are getting stuck in the mountains and it ends up taking 20 days or so.
Because of their location and the challenges they've faced throughout the years, the crew at Alaskan Brewing Company has become very aware of how they're spending their money and invented several earth-friendly ways to save.
In 1998, we implemented a CO2 reclamation system. Basically, at that time, we were purchasing 50,000 pound tanks of CO2 and getting them set up to Juneau. CO2, byproduct of brewing. A lot of those tanks, if they froze or the valve purged, we were still paying for 50,000 pounds. It might only have been 20,000 on there. So what we do is basically capture the CO2, we scrub it, and then we reuse it in the carbonation.
After they mastered that, they kept looking for more ways to be green.
We implemented a mash filter press, early 2000s, basically increases our efficiencies in all of our grains and decreases our water usage. And then about 2 years ago, we are the only brewery in the world that has a spent grain boiler mass system.
Their spent grain boiler cost nearly $2 million, but now solves the problem of what to do with their grain waste and also saves them a lot of money on heating oil. It's taking care of more than half of the brewery's power needs and saving them nearly $500,000 per year in the process.
Spent grain is obviously a byproduct, again, of brewing. Any brewery in the lower 48, they go sell it to the farmers. We have no farms in Juneau. So we were actually already drying it all and then shipping it down to Seattle and then selling it off to farmers down there. So basically, with the mash filter press, it compresses it down to almost a particle board substance. Then we use that substance to actually heat and fuel the brewery. Right now, I want to say it's right around 70%, something like that. We're looking to obviously increase efficiency even more. Hopefully, possibly get to 90, 95 one day.
Since they started using the spent grain boiler, they added the tagline, "Beer-powered beer," since the brewing of their beer helps fuel the future brewing of more beer. While Sean was at Northgate, he had several of Alaskan's beers on hand for sampling. Their flagship beer, Alaskan Amber, was the first beer they brewed back in 1986.
It was based off a recipe from the Douglas City Brewing Company, which at the turn of the century was the largest brewery in Juneau. So Jeff feels what Alaskan Amber is, which is the beer that put us on the map. He basically feels it's exactly point on to 100 years ago.
While their Amber is their top seller, their smoked porter is the most awarded beer ever at the Great American Beer Festival and is often credited with bringing smoked beers back into the market.
They read about all these big smoky porters. So basically, Jeff recreated that style in 1988. The nice thing is, it's only 6.5% alcohol, but the smoke actually plays as a natural preservative. The big difference, I think, between our beer and other smoked or Welsh beers around are we use alderwood. It's a hardwood indigenous to Alaska. So a lot of people, they'll drink that beer and they'll think it tastes like smoked salmon, because any smoked salmon you'll buy is going to be smoked with alder. So they're picking up on that different taste, where a lot of people are either going to use pre-smoked malt, liquid smoke, or even like a beechwood. So the smoke is obviously a big factor.
But for Sean, his favorite Alaskan beer is only out for a couple of months each year.
Hands down, our winter ale. It's Old English ale brewed with spruce tips. Again, trying to recreate the brewing history of Alaska. Jeff and Marcy read some journals of Captain Cook's exploration of the Northwest Passage. And at that time, a lot of people were dying of scurvy, and also a lot of people looked at beer as a nutritional supplement. Spruce, high in vitamin C, they figured they would put the spruce in the boil, you get all this vitamin C, you wouldn't die of scurvy. So we basically, with our winter ale, tried to pay homage to Captain Cook's exploration of Alaska.
Alaskans started dabbling into more seasonal beers. Even though the seasons in Juneau are pretty much just summer and winter, they've been adding an ever-changing spring beer and fall beer to their lineup.
So this year we have a new pumpkin ale coming out. A lot of the same ingredients that we used in pumpkin porter, the same alder smoked malt that we use in smoked porter will be in this beer, but it'll be a lot lighter in body, a lot more sessionable. We have a coffee brown, which I'm super stoked about. That'll be coming out right around October. That was the first thing I asked for when I started at the brewery was, can we brew a coffee beer? I love beer and coffee, so I'm super stoked about that. Some fun stuff coming down the pipeline.
Northgate offers beer, wine, and liquor seminars on a regular basis, and you can find out what they have going on this month on their Facebook page.
All right, after the break, summer, beer, there's one more thing.
I don't know.
Baseball.
Baseball.
We'll take you to the Saints game and see all of their amazing craft beer options.
My new mom and I have a lot in common.
The great outside.
We both love the outdoors.
So shiny.
That's not a flower. We both love geology.
Oh, look. An igneous one.
That's not a rock. And she knows a lot about wildlife.
A labradoodle.
That's not a dog. Hanging out has been kind of fun.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of kids in foster care will take you just as you are.
Here is my handle and here is my spout.
When I get all steamed up, then I shout.
Tip me over and pour me out. Oh. The smallest moments can have the biggest impact on a child's life. Cheers. Take time to be a dad today.
Welcome back to On Tap, and as we said before the break, nothing goes better with summer and beer than some baseball.
Especially if you're Ben.
Yes.
Beer, baseball, and Ben, these things are together.
Golden. But it wasn't too long ago at a baseball game that you couldn't get anything other than some yellow watery substance disguised as beer, but that has totally changed. And one place that is completely evident is at the new St. Paul Saints Stadium, CHS Field. So let's head out there and take a look at what they have to offer.
Cold beer, pop water, peanuts.
We are here at beautiful CHS Field in downtown St. Paul, and it is a great vibe before the Saints game tonight. And I think I have found just the place that our show should feature. That's the Craft Beer Corner. It's right here behind me. Let's learn all about it.
The Beer Dabbler Craft Beer Corner here, we've got 32 different beers on tap, including 2 ciders, and 26 of them are actually local or Minnesota brewed, so it's a great spot to come and try out a bunch of different types of beers. The focus here was to build on the success we saw at Midway, so that was a big part of bumping up to 32 different beers. It's been overwhelmingly positive on the variety. There's something for everybody here. Then we've also been able to add to the space and the experience, and so being here and being able to see the entire game from the left field corner has been a really great positive for the fans. Baseball and beer certainly go hand in hand, and so for us as marketers and as trying to increase the enjoyment for the fans, we're always looking for ways in which we can do that. So wanting to capitalize on the variety of beer that everybody is seeing in their daily lives, and how the craft beer scene has really come to the forefront, specifically in this market. Right now in St. Paul, it's kind of becoming the craft capital of Minnesota, and so we're able to be a part of that with this experience in the park.
32 different options. What did you pick?
I decided to go with the Insight Brewing. Scotch Ale.
I picked the Insight Sosa.
And Pedal IPA.
How do they taste? How are the first taste? All right, let's get that first taste.
It's really good.
And you? How does it taste? Have you taken a sip?
No. Give it a try right now. Very good for a sessionable beer.
What do you got to drink tonight?
I got the Cygnus X1. It's a dark.
Yeah. How's it taste?
Really good.
I'm willing to try them all. So it's good to see the local options right here too. So.
How is it to have these? You got 32 different options of craft beer here.
It's awesome. I don't like the billion-dollar beers, the big name beers. I like the more small batch craft beers.
It's totally the mood, right? So on a really hot day like today, I definitely after something lighter, more of a lawnmower beer sort of a thing. But if if I can sit in the air conditioning, I definitely want to go after something hoppy. An IPA is up my alley for sure.
Well, what a craft beer selection here at CHS Field. Myself, I went with the Bent Paddle Bent Hop IPA. One of my favorites is a go-to for me, and I'm so glad that I can drink this beer and enjoy some baseball. One of my favorite drinks with my absolute favorite sport. So fun to learn about the Craft Beer Corner. Now I'm going to enjoy some great beer and watch some fun baseball. It really was a great experience out at CHS Field. I would encourage any of you to check it out this summer. If you don't make it this summer, next summer, make sure you get out there for a Saints game.
And drink good beer while you're there.
Yes, for sure. And we wanted to, again, thank them for having us out this year.
We also want to say thank you to the Roadside, to Northgate Wine and Spirits, to the Alaskan Brewing Company, and to Urban Growler, all for taking the time to meet with us this month.
Yeah, Deb and Jill, thank you so much for having us out. I think all that's left is for me to win a game of bocce ball here on the Roadside Bocce Ball Court. What do you say?
Challenge accepted.
All right. Well, remember, drink good beer and drink it responsibly. I don't even got time for cheers. I just got to win this game right here.
On Tap is sponsored in part by Northgate Wine and Spirits, your friendly neighborhood liquor store with more craft beer than days in the year. Their stores in Blaine, Andover, Woodbury, and Cottage Grove are serving up great customer service. And by The Roadside, an independent restaurant in Blaine serving gourmet tacos, burgers, beer, and more.